If you have a true scary or strange story you want to share with the channel, please do send it my way. My submissions seem to have dried up a bit this last month. But anyway, just go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to send it to me. And of course, thank you. Hey Raven, I'm just loving your channel. It helps me get through many a workday. Well, thank you. I want to share one of the most incredible oddball experiences I have ever had. It was a beautiful sunny day in December of 1999. My brother and I were at the public library. He wanted to check out their indie films on VHS, and I had my own research to do. We wandered around looking at things for a while. The sun was streaming in the big windows illuminating the bookshelves. We couldn't find the movie section though. Finally, we asked a librarian and she told us that it was on the second floor. She pointed out the public elevators and told us to take it to the second floor. When the doors opened, we should turn to the right, walk a few yards, and the movies should be right there. We thanked her and headed off to the elevator. We were the only ones going up at that time. So we got in the elevator, the doors closed, and my brother pushed button number 2. There were only 3 buttons to choose from: basement, first floor, where we already were, and then second floor. The elevator went up 1 floor and settled into place. The doors opened, and we were in an office area. Not what we expected. Still, we followed the librarian's instructions, stepped out, and turned to the right. There was a cinder block wall. Wow. A hallway led straight ahead from the elevator. I told my brother we should try down there. Maybe the aisle for the movies was that way. We walked, turned to the right again, and then came to a set of double doors. This had to be it, we were certain. I pushed on the handles to open the double doors, but they wouldn't move. I tried shaking them, they wouldn't move. I banged on the doors with my fists and yelled for someone on the other side to open them and let us through. No one responded. We turned around and went down the hallway behind us. The offices were laid out in big squares. As we came to the end of that hallway, there was a larger office and a window. I was surprised to see that it was completely overcast outside. Some clouds must have rolled in, and we went down the hallway leading away from there. It was just more offices. The next hallway took us back to that elevator. It was really weird. We walked around for a while trying to figure out where we had gone wrong. We noticed that it was hot, and we were starting to break a sweat. It was also totally silent. There was no sound coming from the very crowded first floor below. Libraries are quiet places, yes, but we should have at least heard doors opening and closing. A low hum of voices. Something. As it was, we could only hear our own heartbeats. In the center of the office area were storage closets. We opened some of them, but they were only full of cardboard boxes overflowing with paperwork. The office walls were painted a mustard yellow color, kind of outdated, but it was a public library. The office doors were open, so I went inside some of them. There were no calendars on the walls. The phones were the old 80s models, and while the computers were everywhere downstairs, there were none in the offices. I picked an office, and I rifled through the stacks of paperwork that were covering one of the desks. Every office's desk had stacks of paperwork on them. The paperwork I looked at was from the 60s and 70s. It was old receipts for books ordered for the library. I guess that they were finally doing something about their enormous paperwork problem. The most recent paperwork I could find was from June of 1983. There was nothing anywhere more recent. Finally, my brother gave up on finding the movies in this place. We took the elevator back to the first floor where it was bright and sunny again. Interesting. and we found the librarian that we had talked to just before and told her that we didn't find the movies, just offices. When I told her this, her face screwed up incredulously, and she said that that was impossible. She then offered to take us up there herself. My brother went with her, but I stayed downstairs to do my own research. About 15 minutes later, he returned with an armload of VHS tapes. I asked him where they were and how we missed them. He didn't answer at first. I said, "Wait a minute. You got in the elevator with the librarian and the doors closed?" He said yes. Then she pressed button number 2 just like we did. He said yes. The elevator went up one floor and settled just like the first time. He said yes. And then the doors opened. And my brother then told me that everything up there was different. There was a large aisleway with people browsing. He and the librarian went to the right and finally came to the film section. So I asked him, where were we? He just shrugged his shoulders and shook his head. I knew something strange had happened. Sadly, it took me a long time to figure it out. I have since looked into it, and using the library system's own records, I've determined that we traveled back in time to 1983. The office area existed in that library on the second floor from the 1960s to the late 1980s. There was a renovation done later that moved the offices and opened up that section of the second floor to the general public. I have a copy of the 1980s booklet that clearly shows the office area where we think we were. I wish that I had known while we were still there. I think I might have taken an office chair and tried to beat the window out of that front office. I would have also tried to call my friends. As a child of the 70s, I did enjoy the trip, though. Hello, Raven. Big fan of your channel, of course. I've shared a story with you before that you did end up reading. Thank you, by the way. And the reason I'm sending this story in is because this literally just happened. It's currently Friday, March 21st, 2025. The glitch occurred about 15 minutes ago. It's currently 8:27 p.m. Eastern Time while typing this. The glitch in question involves my 2 dogs. Well, more specifically, one of my 2 dogs, but the other was present when it happened. My 2 dogs are named Jellybean, female, and Rhett Butler, typically shortened to just Rhett, male. The 2 of them had been in their crates for most of the evening. I was home alone when this happened, so when Rhett started barking in his crate wanting out, I got up and left my room to let them both out. I let Jellybean out of her crate first, and she made a beeline to the kitchen where the back door is where we let the dogs out. When I let Rhett out of his crate, he went straight for their shared water bowl and started drinking. Rhett usually doesn't drink for very long, so I headed to the kitchen and to the back door to let Jellybean out, since she was already there. We have a back door and a screen door, so when going out into the back door, you have to open the back door first, then the screen door. Jellybean went outside, and at that moment, I could still hear Rhett drinking from the water bowl. I pulled the screen door closed, but not enough for the latch to catch, and called for Rhett to come outside. I heard him stop drinking, but he never came. I called out again, no Rhett. I tried a third time using his full name in a stern voice, but he didn't come. Rhett does not ignore people when his name is called, so this was unusual for him. From where I was standing at the back door, I could see the living room, but I could not see Rhett, as there was a chair blocking him from view. He's a very low-to-the-ground dog. I was confused as to why he wasn't coming when I called him, so I went back into the living room. Rhett was not there. I looked in the hallway to the right that leads into 3 separate rooms, my mother's room, my bedroom, and my bathroom, and he was not sitting there. I checked my room to see if maybe he went in. I had left my door open. No sign of him. I checked my bathroom, which had also been left open, but no Rhett. I checked my father's room, even though I knew that that was impossible since the door, that wasn't fully shut, but had been left open a crack, hadn't moved an inch. He wasn't there. I even checked behind the couch, even though he usually doesn't go back there, and he wasn't there. At this point, I'm incredibly confused. I stood in the middle of the living room to try to wrap my head around it when I looked out the screen door. Rhett was outside sniffing around. I just stood there dumbfounded. I'm trying to think of every rational way he could have gotten outside, but nothing comes to mind. He should have brushed up against me when going out the back door, but I never felt him. I should have heard his nails clicking on the kitchen floor. It's tile and you can always hear the dogs walking on it, but I didn't hear that either. I was looking into the living room while he was still drinking, waiting for him to come outside, and I never saw him cross from the living room into the kitchen. I heard him stop drinking in the living room and then called him, but I never saw him. There is just no way that I can visualize him having gotten outside without me either hearing, feeling, or seeing him in some way. This is my first major glitch that I've experienced. I've had something disappear and return to the same spot that it should have been in, and I've even experienced a slight jump, the last story that I sent you. But those are relatively minor compared to the whole dog seemingly moving from one spot to another without seeing, hearing, or feeling him go by. Thank you for reading, Raven, and if you choose to put this in a video, thank you for listening. Maybe someone can help me make this make sense in the comments, because I'm completely stumped. Hi, Raven. I came across one of your videos. Really well done. I have a story that I have related to almost no one if you're interested. This happened in our old house, which, by the way, burned down. Another interesting story, but not for here. My wife and I were only married for a short while, and this was our first house. An old 1890s Victorian farmhouse-style house. No children yet. It was spring or summer, and we had the window open for the breeze while we did the housework. The layout of the house was long, and from front to back on the first floor, it went like this. Entrance with stairs on the right, to the left was a parlor, and then the dining room with the sitting room off to the side, the kitchen, and a back room that was once a mother-in-law room. You could see from the parlor all the way to the back room if you stood in the centralized spot. There were doors that closed off the kitchen, but we removed them for better flow and only had a curtain across the door to the back room. I was sitting at the dining room table doing what I don't remember, and my wife was in the kitchen. We'd been talking back and forth. I watched her walk into the back room behind the curtain and out of view. I then asked her something, but got no response. I called to her, still no response. I got up to go to her, but when I got to the back room, she was not there. I looked all through the room, which also had a bathroom and kitchenette, and all were empty. I kept calling for her. Nothing. I thought she might have slipped past me without me seeing, so I went through the rest of the first floor, but she was not there. I also checked upstairs. Nothing. There was an enclosed porch side entrance off of the kitchen, and she was not there either. We had bells on the doors so we could hear them open and close, and I had not heard anything, plus the outside door was still closed and locked. I also didn't see her outside at all either. I was bewildered. We had 2 cats at the time, and I realized that I did not see either of them anywhere as well, though cats can hide very well. As I stood there somewhat frustrated and very confused in the enclosed porch, I suddenly realized the sound, or rather lack thereof. Just before, there were multiple birds singing, a slight breeze rustling the trees, cars going down the street, traffic sounds from the busy main street down the road. But now there was nothing but silence. Not even a breeze. All I had heard for a while were my own footsteps and voice. And even those sounds were, well, odd somehow. Like not real. Like they were somehow being deadened or muffled. I also noticed how strange it felt. The stillness. It almost felt like time had stopped. It was such an odd feeling. I went back into the dining room and sat down in the same spot that I was in before. After a moment, I turned to the kitchen, and then my wife comes out of the back room into the kitchen. There was no possible way I could have missed her before. I called to her and asked her where she had gone, and she simply said that she was in the back room getting something. I quizzed her and she told me that she had been there for only a moment, but I know I had been alone for a good 10 minutes or so, or so it seemed. I then noticed that all the sounds were back. The birds, the breeze, the traffic, all of it. To this day, I have no idea what happened, and nothing like it has happened since, though a lot of other strange things have happened in that house, including the day that it burned down. I'm not sure if this is for parallel universe or glitch in the matrix stories, but I'll relay my story and you can decide where it should go. My husband and I live in a rural area of a Midwestern town. We moved here about 8 years ago. Businesses are generally limited here, so when we find a business that we like and that treats us well, we give them our exclusive business. This happened with the mechanic that we found, an honest, family-owned place the next town over, run by a very nice guy and his wife. I'll call the guy George and his wife Nancy in this story. And that's the only thing that's been changed for this story. George and Nancy have 2 adopted rescue dogs that they bring to the shop often, and as we're parents of several rescue dogs ourselves, I got to the habit of taking bags of treats, or sometimes toys, for their dogs, whenever we would have to bring our car in for repairs. The gesture was well received by them and very much appreciated, so I continued to do this every single time. George would come and talk to me sometimes for a few minutes, when he would explain what's happening with my car, and invariably we always got around to some personal chit-chat. A couple years ago, the conversation steered to George telling me that he and his wife were now vegetarian because he was trying to lose some weight and his cholesterol was getting high. I remembered this for the next time I had to bring in my car. I specifically chose vegetarian treats, berries, banana, peanut butter, etc., for their dogs the next time, and both George and Nancy commented how appreciative they were that I was so thoughtful to bring vegetarian treats for their dog, since they were now vegetarians themselves. We didn't discuss their vegetarianism every time, but there were a minimum of 3 separate instances over the past couple of times where I distinctly remember their vegetarianism was mentioned. In addition to me either always bringing vegetarian treats for their dogs or a toy, if I didn't have a treat at the time. Fast forward to this past Thursday. I hadn't been there in a while, but I had to bring in my car for what I thought was going to be a simple issue. That morning at home, when I went to my cabinet to pick out the treats for the dogs, I picked up, at first, a package of meat-based treats. Then I remembered, oh wait, George and Nancy are vegetarian, let me go find a vegetarian package of treats. I put the meat ones back and picked out a box of peanut butter and banana treats. When I got to the shop, and I was checking in, Nancy came out and greeted me, asking me how I was. I said, fine. And then, by the way, here's a box of peanut butter and banana treats for your dogs, since I know you're vegetarians. Nancy and the receptionist both looked at me like I had worms crawling out of my face when I said that. Nancy took the box of treats, but looked completely confused. She didn't say anything, and I went and sat down, but now I was very confused by her reaction. It turned out that there was another issue that, unfortunately, caused me to have to leave the car there, as parts had to be ordered. George said that he would give me a ride back home since he had to do a tow for the car in the vicinity anyways. So, in the tow truck, George and I are chatting, and he talks about how he was smoking all this meat this previous weekend. I said, "Oh, I thought you guys were vegetarians. I guess you're not doing that anymore?" He looked at me the same way that Nancy did and said, "We're not vegetarian." And it literally felt like my brain broke. I stared at him in disbelief and said, "Wait, you told me a couple of years ago you guys were doing vegetarianism for health reasons. That's why I've been bringing your dogs vegetarian treats all this time. And you said that you appreciated it." He looked straight at me and said, "No, we're big meat eaters. We eat a lot of meat, and I smoke meat practically every weekend." I shut up at this point because I knew if I said anything further, I was just going to sound insane. But I have 3 separate memories, not dreams and not illusions, distinctive memories with conversations about them being vegetarians. So, I figured I would go home and ask my husband if I ever said anything to him about George and Nancy being vegetarians for verification. He said that he doesn't remember me telling him anything about that, but he said, "It's possible. You did tell me and I was distracted and didn't really pay attention, but no, sorry. I don't ever remember you saying anything about George and Nancy being vegetarians." I have been obsessing about this ever since Thursday. I cannot for the life of me figure out how I have these absolutely distinctive memories of conversations with them about vegetarianism, that in turn had me bringing vegetarian treats for their dogs, and everyone except me is saying that it didn't happen. I know that at first glance, it could be she just confused them with someone else, but I don't bring dog treats to any other business. If they tried it and were no longer vegetarians, logic would dictate that they would have said something along the lines of, "Oh, we tried vegetarianism, but it wasn't for us." But they didn't. And I'm the first to admit when I forget something, and or possibly misremember it in some way, shape, or form, but that's not what happened here. So, as I told my husband, I'm either going insane, or this is a huge glitch in the Matrix / parallel universe situation for me, because I will die on the hill of knowing, not believing, knowing that they told me they were vegetarian. But all of a sudden, as of last Thursday, they were no longer vegetarians and never were. And the discussions that we had about it never happened. If anyone has any suggestions as to what happened here, I would be more than willing to hear your input. And thanks for listening. So, I've had glitches a lot. Like, when things go missing and my mom and I would say that it must be in the sock dimension. That was before I heard about glitches, that is. So, these minor things we will sweep under a rug as to what it is, but some glitches really made me scratch my head and have me questioning myself. Like when I was driving home with my cousin in the passenger seat. It was late out and there was nobody around. No other cars or anyone walking, so it was safe for me to make a left-hand turn to get on the road to my house. As I was turning, I then had to slam on the brakes so hard that it scared my cousin. We both just stared at this car right in front of us. The driver's side door of the other car was directly in front of us, and the man started yelling at us to pay attention. He drove off and I sat there for a few seconds before pulling over completely confused. There wasn't anything around besides me and my cousin. So where did this ghost car come from? I had other glitches after that, but another huge one was in Cape May. My family goes to Cape May during the summer for a week, and we always go to this one pub to eat. We had a party of 8, and yet only 2 of us saw this glitch. We took 2 cars to the pub for dinner, and one of us had to sit on the van floor, that being my mom's friend. We'll call her Jill. She got car sick and said that she had to throw up. So once we got there, we helped her out. She didn't throw up and said that she felt better, so we continued our way to the pub. But since there wasn't room for a party of 8, we had to wait for a few minutes. As we waited outside, I watched Jill and my aunt order a drink from the bar of the outside eating area. My aunt walked away and Jill came over to us after her drink. There were 4 of us that stood near this area: me, my mom, my older cousin Steve, and his girlfriend May. Jill looked at us right in the eyes and did that famous little pee dance, saying that she really had to go. Apparently only myself and my mom were paying attention to this. My mom looked past her and saw my aunt by the bathrooms and told her, "The bathroom is over there by Alex." As she pointed across the room, Jill smiled and said thank you and then started walking in that direction. Now here's the glitch. I watched her stop and begin to dance to the band that was playing at that moment. I was confused as to why she wasn't heading to the bathroom, and I even said out loud, "Didn't she say she needed to go to the bathroom really bad?" My mom heard and confirmed to me that she did, so we all called out to Jill saying that the bathroom was on the other side of the pub. Jill stopped dancing and looked at us confused, asking why we were telling her that. Both me and my mother looked at each other and at the same time, completely shocked and confused, and then looked at the other 2 that stood with us. I asked them if they saw her say that she had to go to the bathroom, but they said they didn't see anything, which made me and my mom look at each other again silently, letting the other know that we saw it, at least. Her friend walked over and asked us again as to why we were telling her where the bathroom was. I spoke up and said, "You looked us right in the eyes and said that you had to go. So Mom told you where it was." Jill got confused and said that she never said that. We saw it. We heard it. It happened somehow and we will die on that hill. My mom tried to explain it to her, but she only got mad at us, saying again that she never said that. And all that she said was that she had to throw up earlier, but that was all. So I laughed and said, "Well, maybe you didn't, but maybe you in a different timeline did." She got even more mad at this and walked off, saying that she said no such thing. Me and my mom looked at each other and asked, "You saw that, right?" But since it was only us who saw this, we couldn't prove ourselves, so we just let it be as it was. I'm sorry if this was all jumbled up. I've never been good at explaining things, so I hope nobody was too confused. Oh, and thank you for taking the time to read my 2 biggest glitches. Hey Raven, before I start, I just need to express how grateful I am for you and your channel. Your videos have become an essential part of my everyday life, and I thank you dearly for all the work you do. Thank you. Also, I want to tell you how amazing your novel is. It's absolutely wonderful work. Thank you for that as well. Here is my glitch in the Matrix experience. The other night, my non-digital battery-operated only clock that runs by a mechanical mechanism was doing its job and ticking away. It was around 11 p.m. and the clock was working fine and showing the correct time. For whatever reason, the ticking was really bothering me, so I took the one and only battery out and placed the clock on my bed and the battery on my desk. The clock stopped ticking, the hands stopped moving, and it was stuck at around 11:01 p.m. My ears felt relieved. I glanced over at the clock at some point, which still read 11:01, and was like, there's no way it's still this early in the night. Then I remembered that I took the battery out. I decided that I wanted to put the battery back in so I could set my alarm for work. I checked my phone, and it was 3:38. I turned and grabbed the battery off of the dresser and picked up the clock. This is where it gets glitchy. I went to manually move the hands from 11:01 to the correct time before I put the battery in. The hands were already set to exactly 3:38. I was shook. I then put the battery in and it started ticking again in sync with the current time. I have absolutely no idea how this is possible. I was the only one in the room. The clock was next to me the whole time the battery was out, and it had said 11:01 moments before. In that moment, I immediately thought, this is a freaking glitch in the Matrix. I didn't experience a time jump, but my clock did. On January 26th, I placed an order comprising 10 lightweight long-sleeved shirts of various colors, total $79.81. Having assumed I would receive them within 3 days, as is normally the case with Amazon Prime, I was disappointed to learn that they were being shipped from China and were expected to arrive by February 26th. On February 27th, the screen read, "Sorry for the delay, we've tracked your package. Its estimated arrival is now March 5th through 7th. If you don't care to wait, you may request a refund." On March 8th, the query screen read, "Your package may be lost. It possibly will arrive eventually. In the meantime, you may request a refund." I clicked Contact Seller and the chatbot said, "Your refund of $79.81 was issued on February 16th. Clearly, this was an error. It would make sense for them to refund my money back then only if they knew that the items were unavailable. If that were the case, why tell me that the package was in transit and when it was due? If a refund had been generated, it would have been March 8th at the earliest. I checked my bank statement and was floored to see that the refund cleared on February 18th. So, is there a psychic in customer service who knew that my package would get lost? So that, my friends, was this week's of Glitch in the Matrix stories that highlight the weird, strange, bizarre, and odd things that we can't understand. Don't understand? I don't know if we can, but just don't. Weird stuff. Weird supernatural stories that... paranormal stories? I don't know. Stories that are weird. You guys know what they are. Why am I explaining this to you? Anyways, yeah. Good stories, fantastic stories as always. I appreciated them, and I appreciate all of you for listening. So if you did enjoy these stories, please do hit that like button under the video. If you're new to the channel and you want more content like this, consider subscribing. That would be amazing. If you want to support the channel further, please do consider doing the join button down below, or going to the Patreon, or doing a super thanks, which should be down below the video as well. A couple dollars a month, or... a video really, really, really helps. You guys have no idea, trust me. And as Patience and I are in the process of buying a house now, and then moving farther away from where we are, all the help that you guys throw my way is tremendously appreciated, trust me. So, yeah. But again, never expected and always appreciated. Also, you get early access if you do join or Patreon. So, just saying. Yeah. You can listen to the podcast, that's what it's called, on other platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, Pandora, Audible. We're on all of them. Where are we? Me. I'm on all of them. And yeah, you can listen to all those places. You can check out my book on Amazon, The Insomniac's Experiment by Raven Adams. It's a psychological thriller novel. Been told it's really good. Have some people that really have enjoyed it. You can do other things that I might be forgetting. I don't know what's going on anymore. The weather's all over the place. We're in a frost warning. It's April 6th. It's crazy here. Anyways, the last thing we do on these videos is the word of the week. The week before last, I had the word adamant on the screen. And on the screen right now is a collection of all the people who left me a comment with the word adamant. These are the people who went above and beyond to leave their comments using the word of the week. As such, they are featured here and thanked so very much for what they did. These comments help the videos do better. Commenting on videos, liking the videos, helps videos do so much better. The algorithm takes all of that into consideration, so thank you again for leaving your comment. If you did with last week's Word of the Week, these people again on the screen are amazing, and I appreciate them. If you didn't, that's totally fine as well. I don't ever expect you guys to, but those who do, just get the extra props, so. Yeah. This week... Oh, my voice cracked. That was fun. What's wrong with my AI? My voice cracked. Anyways, this week, the word of the week is adroit. Adroit. I did say that correctly. Thank you, Merriam-Webster. Adroit means having or showing skill, cleverness, or resourcefulness in handling situations, such as adroit maneuvers if you're a ninja fighting a samurai and you're evading the sword and getting behind him and pulling off your crazy ninja maneuvers. I don't know. I got nothing here. Adroit's a fun word, though. Having or showing skill, cleverness, resourcefulness. You know, that. Anyways, leave a comment with the word adroit on this week's Word of the Week, on this week's glitch video, this video you're on right now, and I'll show it next week. So long as you get it in before the video goes live or gets done, which is usually Sunday. So, all that said, my friends, hope you're having a beautiful week. Hope I see you again here very soon, but until then, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.